Hey, ladies and gents, I think I'm going to get things underway on time, and there's still a few more joining as we get the next session going. Thank you very much for joining us back in the conference room here for the final few sessions of Digital Reconnect this afternoon. We are going to get our teeth into a big topic, always has been, but more so now than ever as a result of this pandemic, the issue of sustainability and more sustainable practice within our aviation operations. The spotlight is on us, will be on us as we begin to see those passenger volumes increase again after the coronavirus crisis like never before. I'm delighted to have a selection of leading operators on our panel who are going to talk to us, share some of their thoughts on what they are doing around this issue. We are joined today by Deon van Niekerk, who's Transformation, Integration and Operational Performance Director APAC at dnata. Welcome to you, Deon.
Thank you very much, Max.
We are joined by Jason Watson, who is Managing Director APAC at TCR. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Max.
And we are joined by Gerald Ng, who is Director Environment and Sustainability, Regulatory and Economic Affairs at Changi Airport Group. Welcome to you, Gerald.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, guys. So how this will work, we've got a joint presentation from Deon and Jason, and then we have some questions that we will get through, and we'll invite your questions from the audience too. So I'm going to hand over to you, Deon and Jason, for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Max. We jump straight into the presentation. Firstly, reduce emissions. Reduce our carbon intensity by improving efficiency and increasing renewable energy used to support our environmental strategy. Reduce fuel consumption and CO2 emissions per turnaround and tons cargo handled by reducing idling, deploying vehicles and equipment efficiently, and using low or zero emissions vehicle where feasible. Also reduce electricity consumption from facilities through energy efficient measures and clean energy use. Consume responsibly. Minimize avoidable resource consumption, reduce waste and promote responsibly supply chains. Reduce avoidable single-use plastic in operations and our supply chain, and enhance sustainable procurement practices and assess life cycle impacts of products and services. Waste diversion from landfill through waste avoidance, reuse and recycling. Protect wildlife and habitats. Take action against illegal wildlife trade. Reporting, working with authorities to combat illegal wildlife trade and increase awareness for frontline staff. These three pillars are the priorities of the dnata environment framework. We aim to deliver results against these focus areas in our own operations, as well as through our products and services, so that we can support our customers, stakeholders, and partners to achieve the environmental objectives. So what are our commitments? At dnata, we are committed to minimizing the environmental impact of our operations across all our business and activities, including our supply chain. Core objectives includes to comply with all applicable environmental regulations and obligations, use energy, water and fuel, and other resources efficiently, and minimize emissions and waste. Set objectives and targets for continuous improvements, and put in place programs to address our environmental impact and opportunities. Evaluate and monitor the environmental impact and performance. Innovation that will transform operations is not always linked to technology, but innovative ideas can support more sustainable operations. Sustainability has been a key priority and focus, not just for dnata, but also the world as a whole, as we face the reality of climate change and its devastating impact. We see that collaboration is critical for efficient sustainability practices, in particular in solving crises and in shaping broader solutions. Through the installation of solar photovoltaic panels on our catering and cargo building rooftops, it will generate and supply power to dnata Singapore and bring the following benefits. Approximately 7,600 solar panels installed, providing renewable energy and lowering dnata's carbon footprint. Affirm dnata's engagement and volation to help our environment and achieve our corporate and social responsibilities. Converging towards Singapore standards, Singapore targets the mandatory greening of 80% greening stock by 2030. Roof and building cooling. Solar panels' shade structure not only blocks the harmful solar radiance from the roof surface, but it also absorbs and converts the solar into usable energy, lowering usage and utility costs demanded by air conditioning loads, typically 30 to 50% building energy loads. Dnata Singapore also replaced a total of over 500 mercury high bay light fittings in our cargo warehouse with modern energy-saving light fittings that requires less maintenance. The main objectives of this project were achieving energy saving without compromising the luminous levels for safety reasons and offering long-run cost savings. Replacement of inefficient and dated central chiller plants at both cargo and corporate offices, and switching to an aircon as a service. The switch to this innovative business model will support our sustainability agenda while improving building efficiency. All of the above supports our goals towards energy savings, bringing reduction in operational costs, reduction in electricity bills, maintenance costs, and demonstrates Dnata's environmental efforts to our customers. In another example, Dnata recently joined forces with Blue Aqua Food Tech to boost food security in Singapore. The partnership will see Blue Aqua upcycle organic waste from Dnata's catering and ground handling operations into alternative insect protein for aquafeeds. Blue Aqua's innovative bioconversion solution processes underutilized nutrients from the leftovers that can be transformed into the quality insect proteins for aquacultural use. The MOU signed is the starting point to a deeper partnership between Blue Aqua and Dnata, which will look into the development and implementation of a zero waste master plan. The process will go full circle, with Dnata adding Blue Aqua to our list of suppliers to purchase locally farmed seafood for our local catering operations. Throughout the past year, Dnata has been driving digital acceleration and have successfully implemented numerous initiatives in our operations, to enhance efficiency, reduce turn times, and to introduce a fully connected and paperless ecosystem in the airport ground operations, and to support our environmental sustainability goals. Some of these examples are our Dnata Hub, cargo management systems, aircraft turnaround management tools, our new resource management systems, Cargo Eye for automated volumetric weight calculations, and Cargo Mind, which is digital process to increase the amount of cargo we can safely build on an aircraft ULD, therefore saving fuel and energy for our customers. We are also focusing on developing various mobile applications to allow customers a more seamless experience and enhance operational visibility. Dnata is partnering with a global industry leader across our network to promote more sustainable operations by improving the management of our existing GSE fleet and encouraging the gradual replacement of old diesel equipment with a more sustainable asset base, including electric GSE. Electric GSE has revolutionized the way ground operations function by providing cleaner and more energy-efficient technology safely. In Singapore, Dnata signed up with TCR and will be rolling out the first upgraded equipment by July 2021. Dnata will benefit from TCR's cutting-edge GSE expertise to strengthen the efficiency of our fleet, to accelerate our emissions reductions by increasing the GSE fleet electrification, and reduce total cost of ownership through their quality and flexible services. Jason, over to you, Jason. You and me.
Thank you, Deon. Thank you for that nice introduction. So just some high-level figures from a GSE solutions business perspective. Excluding aircraft at an airport, ground support equipment can account for up to 30% of the direct emissions for that airport. when stakeholders at an airport can shift towards a more common use platform, around 30% of the ground support equipment at that airport can be removed from the operations. An electric GSE fleet compared to a like-for-like internal combustion fleet is around 20 to 25% lower total operating costs. Next slide, please, Deon. So for over 25 years, TCR has been proudly supporting many of the biggest operators in ground handling and aviation. And our role as an integrator to bring more sustainable GSE solutions to the market has seen us expand to around 150 airports of our own assets, around 35,000 assets, of which 20% is electric, and that's growing every year. Next slide. In terms of how do we approach it with our customers, there's really important to consider three fundamental areas from our perspective. First, obviously, we all want to bring more sustainable GSE fleets, and we want to invest to upgrade the fleets, but there's some other aspects such as affordability. Obviously, we need to bring an affordable solution to our customers and to the airport environment, but also keeping in mind the need for continuity and operational performance. When we can find that nice balance between three, generally what we have seen from the projects we've been involved with is a reduction in congestion, a reduction in the equipment cost per turnaround, an increase in the OTP, an increase in the safety performance of the ramp, and overall a reduction in the environmental impact. With dnata, we're obviously very proud to be working with Deon and the team in Singapore, and in the first phase of the project, some direct numbers include over 400 tonnes of carbon dioxide direct emissions from the fleet in this first phase, around a 40% cost reduction, total cost, operating cost reduction in a like-for-like replacement scenario compared to diesel. And all of this is guaranteed under TCR's full service rental, whereby we have stringent service level agreements to ensure the continuity for the team in Singapore. That's it. Over to you, Max.
Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you very much, Deon, for the presentation. Gerald, I'm going to hand over to you, and just interested to know your story and anything you'd like to add from the airport's point of view with regards to greener GSE equipment there at Changi, and some more insight really on your efforts to embrace this sustainability challenge.
Okay, so thank you, Max. I think I'm very intrigued by the very interesting presentations by Deon and Jason. For Changi, just like to introduce a little bit of Changi Airport Group. So Changi Airport Group, we are the airport operator and manager of Singapore Changi Airport, and we do manage several airport assets around the world as well. But by and far, I think our main operations is still at Singapore Changi Airport. And when we're looking at environmental sustainability for Changi Airport, we typically have 4 environmental pillars. And these are pillars that you're very familiar with, I'm sure, amongst the audience. Number 1 will be in terms of our energy and emissions mitigation. Number 2 will be efforts to reduce our waste that's generated and waste that's also incinerated once we bring out the airport. Number 3 will be in terms of water conservation. And number 4, adapting our assets and operations to the impacts of climate change. So for today's session, I think it's rightful that we focus squarely on the reduction of carbon emissions, because this is also one of our key priorities for Singapore Changi Airport. We are very mindful that as a leading international aviation hub, we must do our role as a corporate citizen to reduce aviation emissions. And it does not just make good environmental sense, it also makes good business sense, because increasingly we see that travelers and the public would like to travel more sustainably. And Singapore is very unique also that our Changi Airport is a little bit like a shopping center. So on a daily basis, you do have many people coming to the airport to shop and dine at our airport. So we want to ensure that whatever we're doing is as sustainable as possible. So our efforts are, I would say, broadly divided into 2 aspects. One is in terms of our passenger terminal buildings. So we measure this thing called our carbon footprint on an annual basis. Every year, we subscribe to the Singapore Building and Construction Authority's Green Mark certification scheme. And every time we build a new building, oh, by the way, the Green Mark certification scheme is a little bit similar to maybe for those in Europe, the LEED certification scheme, LEED, for buildings. So whenever we have new terminals in operation or we upgrade our existing terminals, our internal goal is always to punch towards a higher certification level. And we have done so successfully, I think, for all our terminals. Now, if we focus on today's topic, which is on GSEs, for the air side, when our passenger terminal 4 started operations way back in October 2017, we engaged our key airport partners, including dnata, to ensure that from day one of the opening of Terminal 4, all the baggage tractors that are operating at Terminal 4 will be operated on an electric basis. And it's, I think, definitely amongst the audience, you know that it requires many hands to clap. It's more than 2 hands, it's many hands to clap. So what we did was, CAG, we put in place an electric vehicle charging network for baggage tractors. Partners such as dnata also had to ensure that all the baggage tractors, not just the equipment, but the operators operating in Terminal 4 are adequately trained in this as well. And I'm glad to say that since operations in 2017, I don't have the figures on hand, but I do know that anecdotally, not only have we reduced a lot of carbon emissions from the air side, we have also had reports from our operators on the ground that they have had improvements in terms of operational health and safety. So this is a good thing. So this is for Terminal 4. So for Changi Airport, we have 4 passenger terminals. What is going on for the other 3 passenger terminals? For the other 3 passenger terminals, we have also progressively put in place electric vehicle chargers, albeit this is only for baggage tractors for now. We have not managed to fully electrify our airside yet. Right now, what we're doing is we're working with partners such as dnata to progressively electrify the rest of the GSEs operating on the airside. And perhaps it'll be insightful for me as an airport operator just to share a little bit of the considerations that we go into. So apart from the trilemma that Jason described, I think for an airport operator, we are also very conscious of the traffic congestion angle. And we see the conversion to electric GSEs as really a way to have a clean suite. I think for any airport operators, over the years, you build up a whole collection of different vehicle types, different models, different vintage or eras as well. So we are able to say within a space of 3 to 5 years, transition to electric GSEs, we have a complete fleet renewal. For CAG, we are also looking into the nuts and bolts of operational considerations, things such as the number of electric vehicle charging points, the mix of fast versus your normal or AC charges. And we are also actively exploring whether we can put in place a network that allows for opportunistic charging, such that the GSEs can be charged on the go throughout the day, as opposed to only charging them when the GSEs are fully depleted at the end of each workday. So this will hopefully allow our operators to keep the number of GSEs at an optimal number, because I think cost is a consideration as well. So this is what I have at this moment. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gerald. Obviously extensive, the work you're doing, and we'll pick up on some of the points that you raised there during the Q&A session. Just a note to everyone watching in, you can submit your questions for the panel. Just drop them into this little Q&A bubble, the 2 speech bubbles, sorry, down at the bottom of your screen, and we can pick those up. Maybe you're along the way to a sustainability, on a sustainability journey, and you want to share some thoughts on some of the points that resonated. Maybe you're about to start one. Whatever your position, please drop your questions in, and I'm sure the guys will be happy to answer them. Let me kick off by asking you all what you think are the common barriers to achieving a more sustainable ramp operation, the most important considerations people should have when assessing the opportunity here to transition. I'll start with you, Deon.
Yeah, if I jump in, Max, basically, I think kind of the barriers would be, what is the, from a facility point of view, what's the limitations and I think Gerald mentioned the, when you do kind of electrical vehicles, for instance, what is the charging points? And it's not just about the volume of charging points, it's where these charging points are also based. Because obviously that affects your efficiency in the business, maybe travel times that you've got. And I think the second thing is also, staff has been so used to handling some of these equipment. If we spend or we take a bit of a view on the equipment, done the equipment for the last, say, 20 years, and suddenly we replace that, there's a whole element of safety that we also need to take into consideration from our point of view. You know, what effect will that have on the safety and the safety operations that we need to roll out? And I think another point for me, very, very key, is the training of the staff. Effectively, that will adjust the training and also the familiarization of the staff itself, and to make them familiar with the GSEs that they use. And for instance, from a facilities point of view, when we put up the solar panels, it's effectively that review of, is your base that we're laying the solar panels on strong enough as well? So there's all these kind of things that come into kind of play when we do a business case for each one of these sustainability projects.
Thanks, Deon. Jason, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think we obviously shared our trilemma framework that we use to communicate some of the challenges, but they tie to Deon's point and some of Gerald's points, certainly. You know, the operational performance and what we call continuity, that ties into Deon's point about the location of the charges, how much impact does it have to the existing operations, as well as the knowledge for the operators of the equipment and any up training that needs to happen to transition the fleet. Obviously, from a cost perspective, there's an asset life cycle that we see, and that can vary from 7 years to 15 plus years on traditional GSE. So depending where a fleet is at on that journey, it can also be quite a capital intensive upgrade to move a fleet across quickly. So being able to redeploy the diesel assets that might still have life to other airports that might not be as advanced on the journey, definitely. But for sure, you know, the leadership from Changi Airport on the charging infrastructure is the big hurdle that everybody wants to see, and then momentum can be built on the back of that. So I think it's great leadership by Changi Airport in that regard.
Thank you. If I might add on from Changi Airport's perspective, we are also trying to design right, size it right. So what I mean is that we are not opposed to putting in electric vehicle charging in phases, because we also do not want to have white elephants as well in place, especially now with the travel slowdown that the whole world is facing. So we are not, to be fair, we're not delaying our plans for electrification. We just want to design right. Think about which terminals we start the electric vehicle charging first, and then populate it throughout the airport. So I guess this is what all airport operators will be thinking about. In terms of safety, that's an aspect that I totally agree with Deon and Jason as well. And this is really our focus, because as much as we talk about machinery, about electrifying our equipment, we are very mindful that we want to protect our workers to the fullest. So this is where both hands must clap again. In terms of operator ease of use as well, we are also looking towards a common plug type. So this is the plug that your electric vehicles are plugged to the chargers, instead of having multiple plugs. It's a bit like having your UK, US, and Southeast Asian plugs, right? You have many, many different plug types. So we are hoping that there could be a universal plug type that we can use, apply throughout the airfield, and this will simplify procedures a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Gerald. And are there considerations outside of emissions and costs that you would advise people to consider here? Gerald, I'll start with you on that.
Okay, sure. Maybe I can take on this question first. So besides emissions and costs, I would say, really from an environmental point of view, you're looking at health and safety. So it's about humans after all. I think all we're doing is about helping the environment and helping our co-airport workers. So I approach it from this perspective.
Okay. For you, Deon?
Yeah, I think it's health and safety, as I mentioned, is an aspect, and then it boils down to more, you know, how does that change affects the business, your standard operating procedures that gets affected, and how does that change, and how do you need to then align your business, kind of the values and goals that you've got in the business, how does it align then to the sustainability program or the change that you want to make in the business? So it's very key that gets also, because you need to make it very visible in and outside of the business.
Thank you. Anything you want to add, Jason, on that one?
Yeah, probably selfishly from a GSE perspective, there's the knowledge for the operators of the equipment, but we run workshops with technicians. The technicians' knowledge as well is an important factor if you're going to accelerate a fleet transition to electrified fleet. There's a capability there that needs to go with it. And also, if you're going to start developing an airport towards the common use user or pooling of GSE, which brings further benefits to the table, the systems, the fleet management, the understanding of how to manage shared GSE on an airport, really, really important as well. And then probably lastly, just the one that I mentioned about the redeployment, being able to redeploy assets, to not have white elephants, to use Gerald's words, but to be able to redeploy those and make sure that they get their useful life as well is important to the economics.
Thank you. Jason, in the presentation, you showed some interesting cross benefits in terms of improvements in safety and OTP. Are you able to say a little more, share a little bit more about what you might expect to unlock if you are, because it's obviously a brilliant complementary benefit if you're tackling the sustainability issue, that you become more efficient and better as an operation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's different aspects to it. We've got, and it's all off real projects, in the industry, across the industry now, where we've seen significant benefits to OTP, significant reductions in aircraft damage, significant reductions in GSE damage, as well as, the technology is developing quickly. So, we see improvements in the assets alone, improvements in the availability of GSE fleets, and the reliability across the board. So, yeah, really can depend on the project that we've been involved on, but across all the ones that we scoped out, we see benefits in all of those areas.
Deon, anything you want to add there on some of the performance benefits you've witnessed from this program?
No, for me, it's. I think we touched on most of the benefits. I think the key part for me is the availability of GSE. Seen that we had some breakdowns and that affected our OTP. And with this coming in, we know that will change. And I think that's kind of for us a very key part going forward in our, because it's, the customer centricity part that we focus on and all the KPIs, that's extremely important for us to maintain and achieve those.
And on that topic of KPIs, what's the panel's advice on the best KPI you would use to measure your progress on sustainability? Is it emissions? Is it another metric that you should be guided by? What's your experience, Gerald? How do you measure progress?
Yeah. I think for us it's very clear. It is emissions.
Emissions.
Because I say this because emissions encompasses many aspects. Even things I touched on in terms of water and waste as well, everything has an emissions footprint. You need emissions to produce water, you are emitting emissions to truck away the waste from the airport as well. So everything boils down to emissions. And to us, I think at this stage of development, I dare say that this is a simple metric that everyone can understand. And I guess as humans, we like to quantify things, right? So when we look at numbers, you can look at year-on-year comparisons across sectors, comparisons across other airport peers as well. And this is, I guess, a simple metric to talk about our progress year on year.
And how do you communicate that metric to across the airport, to the teams, employees? Because everyone likes human nature, like you say, to see progress, to see you're making steps forward. Is it very visible that you're bringing these emissions down? Would I see it in front of me as an employee there at Changi?
I think it's a good point. I mean, it's something that we cannot take for granted because, say, for instance, at this conference, while everyone is very aware of electric GSEs and knows about it, especially such as Deon and Jason here in this call, and yourself, Max, I don't think the rest of the airport community are aware of developments. So media and publicity to our internal airport community plays a huge part, and external publicity as well. Not for publicity's sake, but really to tell people about the good work that's being done and to gain their support. So we do this through different means. We have social media platforms. I believe all the partners here also do produce annual sustainability reports, or even more advanced, some of the partners could be producing integrated reports, where we actually do talk about these efforts and projects across the years. I do see a trend as well. When I first entered this sphere a couple of years ago, the awareness of phrases such as carbon footprint, scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, these were terms that were deemed as pretty technical and confined to, I would say, a narrower group of airport professionals. Now you can't go into a meeting without someone at least mentioning the words environment or sustainability or climate change at least once in almost every meeting that I'm in, even for a non-environment meeting. So I think there's a sea change in attitude, and as aviation professionals, it is our duty to really make sure that we champion this message. Yeah.
This is not going to go away. This is not something you can ignore.
Yes, exactly.
Deon and Jason, I'll bring you on this issue of KPIs and what you found to be the best metrics to guide your progress.
Yeah, I think we in dnata, we use our metrics is basically based on 3 pillars. One is environmental, social, and economic. And environmental is exactly what we mentioned there, is the hard data, which is the environmental inputs and outputs that we've got, and the overall impact that has got. So you kind of measure your CO2 and kind of, and we communicate that out to the wider community as well. And typically it relates to, you know, air and water quality, greenhouse gas emissions, CO2 emissions. And then on the social metrics, it's quite important to keep that in mind, that the social performance also reflects the company's attitude, I think, and treatment of, say, for instance, its employees, its customers, its partners, and society at large. Because then you can also say what percentage of your payroll maybe you do to charities and those kind of things that we contribute to the community as well from a social point of view. And the economics metrics is very simple. It comes down to the dollar and cents again, and how that creates a value for the company. Because obviously every project is, the return on capital is quite important for us as a business to measure against any business case that we put forward for sustainability.
Thank you. Jason, anything he wants to add on that one?
Yeah, well, to Deon's point, I mean, dnata is our customer, and for our customers, we report on the carbon emissions of the equipment in use. So we support their reporting and their own internal KPIs, as well as obviously the costs of operating across the fleet. For us internally, we have, you know, quite a broad ESG framework. If we focused in on the environmental part and the carbon emission part, we operate a very sizable fleet, 35,000 assets. So we're very mindful, and we report regularly internally around what is the carbon emissions from our fleet, what are the averages per motorised GSE, what percent of our fleet by different age brackets are actually moving to zero emission. We have a number of different initiatives with our central fleet team who are working with all of the different OEMs to qualify different technologies, trial different technologies. All of this is part of our KPI metrics, and we have very well-defined programs every year to continue and accelerate those adoptions of new technologies. So, yeah, I think that's
excellent. That's good stuff. And we've had a question come in for you, Gerald, where the attendee's asking if Changi Airport Group have an estimated time frame for the completion of infrastructure to allow for charging of electric equipment across all 4 terminals at the airport. Can you shed some light on that one?
Sure, it's an interesting question. I think if we look at the timeline of implementation, so Terminal 4 started in 2017, and then since then we have also added another 100 or so charging points in Terminals 1, 2, and 3. So where we are in terms of fully electrifying our airside is very much dependent on the factors I mentioned, especially our ground handlers' fleet replacement schedules. But I dare say that, okay, and this is not the official position, but I dare say that we are looking at least, well, I would say a maximum maybe between 5 years or so, we should have the entire airside electrified.
Okay.
Most likely sooner than that, yeah.
Thank you, Gerald. How important, we've talked about the focus on sustainability in all of our lives, not just in aviation. Can you comment, guys, on how important you think promoting your sustainability credentials may well become in winning new business in the future within the aviation supply chain? I'm sure it's happening right now, but how crucial is this issue of showing your sustainability credentials going to be? Deon?
I think in reality, Max, is that sustainability is not it's a necessity. It's not a choice anymore for us. And in that, it's quite very important for us because a lot of emphasis on the focus on sustainability and brings innovation to the forefront. And by marketing our sustainability credentials, it will increase our our dnata brand image as well, and improve the credibility that we've got in the market, and increasing the confidence that's in our industry and the industry partners and our potential new business that we want to win. And many companies in the aviation industry, airlines, airports, and also ground handlers for such, and all the other stakeholders at the airport has committed to achieve some net zero carbon emissions by certain milestone dates. And if we remain ahead in this aviation industry and to set ourselves apart from maybe our competitors and win potential business, I think the dnata has to align itself with those partners as well, with their sustainability goals and the and to even go beyond that, to show that we are as a business are progressive in our thinking.
Thank you. Jason, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, well, obviously Deon is one of our customers. Our job is to try to support those initiatives and those ambitions as much as possible. And the way that we can translate the ambition into real outcome that they can take to their customers is connecting the ambition with tangible outcomes and tangible benefits. So we focus heavily on trying to support that, trying to find solutions in which we can upgrade the fleet. We can, and we can bring the data and the reporting to further enhance their communication with their own customers. So,
thank you. And Gerald, your view on this one?
Well, same here. I think no difference in terms of opinion as well. It's something that's growing, more and more important. And I think all our stakeholders are very concerned about this issue as well.
Excellent. Alignment and collaboration. That's what we need. So good you all agree on that one. Just sort of coming to the end of our time, but I'd be very, very keen to understand of your kind of pearls of wisdom here, your advice to anyone who is, perhaps just starting out on the sustainability journey. What advice would you give them, and what have you learned from your own experiences that you might advise them that don't make this mistake that we made? What consultation, what advice would you give people starting out, I guess? Gerald, can I come to you first on that one?
Sure, maybe I'll go first. I think one thing I've learned along the way is that before you reach out externally, reach out to your internal colleagues first, because very often you get a group of allies and it makes your job a lot easier as well. And there could be people who might not understand the sustainability agenda very well. So do take the time, sit down with them. It used to be over a cup of coffee, but I guess now it will be over Teams or Zoom. But do spend the time to talk. And I strongly believe that talking to colleagues and your external partners as well is the most important thing you can do.
Thank you. Good advice. Jason, I'll go to you next.
Sure. I mean, from our experience, it's really important that all of the stakeholders are on the same page and they're aligned. So education, not just around the benefits that this journey can bring to the entire community, but also an education around the barriers that we spoke about earlier. Everyone being clear on what those barriers are and getting aligned on how to overcome those barriers to allow everybody to accelerate the journey.
Deon.
Yeah, very much aligned with the two other guys. For me, it's about the engagement and the discussion with the stakeholders, internal, external, who have the potential to significantly, I would say, impact the business or your business. And that topics, there's unlimited topics. You can discuss anything, and also by committing, I think it's beneficial for the company that you engage all staff when it comes internal, and that you immerse kind of that sustainability culture from the start. That you go in, you have a discussion with them and say, right, how do we as a company provide a very strong foundation for creating a sustainable business for the future, and also identifying almost these sustainable champions in your business, which are the guys that will bring the ideas to the forefront, because the ideas normally comes up from the guys on the ground, and not all comes from the management team.
No, definitely, sound advice there. And you haven't got any? Would you have an example or two to share where you've got those employee ideas that have come to the fore from your sustainability progress so far? Has there been a why don't we look at doing it this way moment where you've incorporated something from the guys and on the ramp?
Yeah, and not just the ramp. We've also got a catering facility, and a lot of that comes from the catering, sustainable packaging from our catering facilities, say improvement of the shelf life of products that we use in our food production, and how do we reduce the water waste in our operation. So a lot also comes from our catering facility as such, not just from our ground handling operations and the cargo, but it's also the electrification of GSE. It's very much pushed by the staff on the ground. They want it. They want to see that we bring in more sustainable GSE, more kind of working towards a more electrified kind of fleet out there. And we've only scratched this, kind of the surface today regarding electrification, because there's also in our cargo shed, for instance, we are now testing and trialing electrical forklifts. So it's moving also from not just the GSE on the ramp, but also in our cargo facilities. And the big thing that came out of this whole, luckily during this pandemic, the COVID-19 situation, people had time to think a little bit, and it brought our digitalization strategy more to the forefront. And a lot of the apps came from the ground up, from the guys on the ground. They said, can we develop apps for this? And very beneficial things that we put in place.
Excellent. No, good to hear. Look, final comment perhaps from you, Deon. We've heard a lot about the impressive initiatives you've already delivered. Where next for dnata on its sustainability journey?
Yeah, as I said, I think for us as a business, as I said, we've only scratched the surface at the moment from a GSE point of view. We really need to push our agenda on electrification of our GSE fleet and convert more GSE families in the next couple of months. And obviously dependent, obviously from Changi for the infrastructure availability as well. And then, as I said, more electrical forklifts, and then a very big focus around catering, around kind of the food waste that we've got. So that is ongoing within dnata Singapore, and also from a regional point of view in the APAC region.
Brilliant. Well, for now, thank you very much to Deon, Jason and Gerald for sharing your stories and accounts of your progress in this area with us today. Really appreciate your time, and we look forward to hearing more as the journey continues.